Hello and welcome back once again to After the Credits. Today we're talking about Logan. So what did I think of Logan? It had its good points and its bad points, I guess. Honestly, I'm kind of glad that they're retiring, that Hugh Jackman is retiring from the role, because honestly I'm kind of tired of Wolverine. I've been tired of Wolverine for a while. I think we need a break from Wolverine for a while to rebuild our love of the character before he comes back into the film spotlight. I know they're going to redo the whole X-Men thing and reintroduce a new person to play him or whatever. I don't really think it needs to be done. If they wanted to do that, they never should have tied the new X-Men films back into the old ones to begin with. They shouldn't have had Hugh Jackman appear as Wolverine in all the films. They could have easily started to wean in a new character, like this is who our new Wolverine's going to be. You're only going to see him in small flashes until we're done with Hugh Jackman. But no, they wanted to tie the universes together, and now we're stuck with Hugh Jackman. So now when someone else goes into the role, it's just not going to seem the same. What did I think of the movie overall? It was, like I said, had its good points, had its bad points, just kind of over Wolverine. So obviously this is loosely based on the Old Man Logan series, where now Logan's an old man. He's not healing anymore. His body's like still ridden with scars and things from... Well, I don't want to say he's not healing, because at one point when he gets shot, and then later on his body is like pushing the bullets out, but it doesn't heal up to where he has a flawless figure like he used to. Like there's still the scar from where it was, because it doesn't fully heal at the speed that it used to. It heals to the point where it'll regenerate the tissue and push bullets out, but there's a scar left from where it impacted. It's vaguely explained throughout the movie that there's something poisoning him, and that's what's debilitating his healing ability. And it's later kind of determined that his blood is poisoned from the adamantium in his system, that's in his body, I guess, is what they were trying to lay out. But they don't flat out say it. He just kind of suspects that it's the adamantium, but they don't actually say 100% that that's what it is. So this is set somewhere in the future, where apparently there was this catastrophic event that wiped out most of the X-Men. They don't really go into too much detail about what the event was, just that it involved Charles Xavier, who has a debilitating brain disease, similar to like Alzheimer's, or I think they're more related to like ALS. I'm not 100% sure what all ALS does, but basically he's to the point where he's has trouble remembering certain things at certain times, and he occasionally has these seizures, and when he has the seizures, it like shoots out this wave of mental energy that like cripples everyone nearby. It's basically everyone within a certain radius can kind of feel the same thing he's feeling as he's having the seizure. You know, they can't breathe, they can't move, and everything's just kind of stopped in place, and they're still conscious of what's going on, like they can still look around. It's just like this sheer panic because they can't move or breathe. So basically, Wolverine's doing what he can to get him these drugs to help with the seizures, and some other pills that help with his memory so he can stay focused and remember things. They never actually say what the event was that happened that killed everyone or did whatever it did, but they do say that he was responsible. So it was probably the first time he had one of these seizures. No one knew what it was, and it wiped everyone out. But basically, the X-Men are all gone except for Wolverine, Charles, and like a handful of other mutants scattered across the world. Not really any of the major players. And basically, through some course of whatever, no new mutants have been born in like 25 years. No natural ones. So this woman approaches Wolverine asking him for help because he's one of the X-Men, because apparently after there were no more mutants and all the other ones were killed off, somebody took the stories and created the X-Men comic books. So the comic books do exist in the world that Logan lives in. He basically just says, you know, it was a long time ago, it only happened once, and someone turned it into a story and made up all these other stories around it. So this woman comes to him thinking he's this hero, and he goes, you know, that's not who I am, that was never who I am, it was made up for the book. And she says, well, I need your help anyway, and eventually he agrees to help her. Basically, she wants to get out of the country and get to this rendezvous point where she'll supposedly be safe from the people that are after her. And she wants Wolverine basically to escort her there. He agrees because he wants the money that she's offering. And it turns out she ends up getting killed, so there's a girl left behind. And Charles tells him, you know, we have to take the girl there. It's important. So he agrees to take the girl there. And as they're going, he finds out the girl is a mutant too, which he doesn't understand because no new mutants have been born in 25 years. So where did this one come from? And it turns out an offshoot of the Weapon X program that he was involved in has been breeding children in test tubes, basically, using samples of dead mutant DNA tissue. So the girl that he's transporting just happens to be a clone based off of his DNA, and he's kind of upset about that at first. It's kind of like that whole Superman with Superboy thing in Young Justice, where he's not sure how to approach it, so he's kind of staying distant. Basically, it comes down to he finally accepts that he's her father, but at the same time, he still kind of pushes her away, and when she questions why, and he says, anything I care about tends to die. And she goes, oh, I guess I'll live for a long time then, or something. Some sarcastic remark like that, because she thinks that he doesn't care about her when he actually does. Eventually they get to this rendezvous point that everyone's supposed to meet at, and it turns out there's a bunch of new mutants, all children that escape from this facility, and they have to get across the border so that they can't be hunted because this facility doesn't have grounds to move into, like Canada and all that. So Wolverine's helping to take him there, and again, his healing factor is like non-existent anymore. He's old. He can't hardly, it's a struggle for him just to keep his claws out in a fighting position. So he's doing his best to try and fight off these forces, and the only time he really is effective is when they do something to piss him off, and he kind of goes into his berserker rage, which he does like repeatedly throughout the film. And at that point, he kind of gets the adrenaline rush. His claws come fully out. He slashes the hell out of everyone, and it kind of ends with the children eventually getting across the border. Some other stuff happens in the film that I don't want to spoil for anyone. But at least for this point in time, it's definitely the last Wolverine film, at least starring Hugh Jackman. It does have a nice send-off for his character. I say nice, but it's kind of a weak send-off for his character, but based on the Old Man Logan story, it's fitting, I guess, in a way. I know they want to go back and do some other stuff with the X-Men stories, but like Patrick Stewart is retired from playing the Professor X character. Hugh Jackman is retired from playing the Wolverine character. So again, these are all people that they'll have to recast going forward, which they've kind of done with First Class and Days of Future Past and all that. Recasting Charles Xavier with a new actor now, that they can continue to have him play Professor X. But like I said, in Days of Future Past, when Jean Grey, spoilers, breaks Wolverine out of the containment unit at the Weapon X facility, that could have been a point where they introduced a new actor, and then it always would have been kind of up in the air, like, wait, was that Wolverine or was that someone else? And eventually have it turn out to be it's Wolverine, but they had Hugh Jackman play that part, so, obviously, how do you go forward from that and introduce Wolverine into later stuff other than in bit cameo parts until he unites with the X-Men at the start of what would have been the first X-Men film. So, yeah, it's kind of hard to, recast that character now. So I honestly just kind of hope they don't do anything else with the character until they finish up whatever it is they're doing and reboot the entire X-Men series, which at that point I don't know if they'll keep going with the studio they're in or if it'll resort back to Marvel, because there's that whole issue of you have to continue to make films like once every couple of years, otherwise it resorts back to Marvel. And so far they've been doing pretty good at that. But when they did the reboot with First Class, they should have just did a full reboot. Like, okay, we ended the other series with X-Men 3, The Last Stand, I think it was called, and then just rebooted it with this new universe, and you could have introduced any actor to play Wolverine at that point. You didn't have to do the Days of Future Past, introducing Patrick Stewart back in as old Professor X versus young Professor X. You could have just had a different future Professor X, or the same character playing both roles, just with age makeup or something, instead of trying to unite the two universes. But they wanted to have the happier send-off to the original X-Men trilogy by kind of wiping out the entire third movie, like, oh yeah, nothing after the second one actually happened. And honestly, that third one wasn't that bad. You didn't need to do all that. So anyway, what was the point I was trying to make? Oh yeah, it was an okay wrap-up for the Hugh Jackman as Wolverine character. It was an okay wrap-up for Patrick Stewart as the Professor X character. But at the same time, there could have been more going forward. Now they've introduced X-23. But, I mean, they can still go forward with the character, but I don't really see them doing too much with her still as a child. They'll have to skip it ahead another 10 or so years to where she's kind of a teenager or young adult to really do anything with that character at this point. They could easily go to where they are in the comic books now and have her take over as Wolverine, which she has done in the comic books. But at the same time, I don't really know if they would do that, because then they have to try and find a way to tie her back into the other universe, and it just gets really convoluted. So, yeah, I'm not sure where they're going to go with this. It could just be the end there. Again, there's a lot more to the story than what I've told you so far. I just don't want to spoil too much of it for you, because it was an okay film. My really only downfalls with the film are they tried to play up the R rating too much. Obviously, they did an R-rated Deadpool, and it was the better film out of all the PG stuff that they tried to put out. So now they're like, okay, well, let's do the R-rated Logan film, too. And they just try to overemphasize their use of the R rating. It's like Wolverine constantly says the F word, constantly saying shit. Professor X says fuck a few times. And there's just a lot of gore. Like you actually see Wolverine stabbing people in the head and like cutting their heads off and things. And it's all kind of stuff where like in the X-Men films that were PG-13, he would just kind of slash people and they would just kind of fall down. He wouldn't like decapitate someone, or you wouldn't see the claws go through their head and like him rip half their face off when he's pulling them back out. You know, it's just like, oh, we have an R rating? Okay, let's gore the hell out of this. And the whole point of the original X-Men films was that Wolverine stopped being a killer in order to be the hero, so he was able to take people out without having to kill them. And now he's just kind of throwing all that away, and he's like, oh, screw it, I'm just going to kill everyone. And like even in X-Men Origins Wolverine and The Wolverine, he still kind of had that PG mentality where he would just slash people up without actually killing them. Or, you know, if he did kill them, it wasn't from cutting their head off, it was from him stabbing them in the shoulder and then just kind of bleeding to death when he pulled out. But now it's just like, oh, we can get away with the gore? Okay, let's have him actually slaughter people for no reason. And it's like, yeah, some of them are people that are shooting at him and all that, and he can't heal the way he used to. And he's going into berserker rage to defend himself. So yeah, a few people may get killed, but it's like every damn person he kills, he stabs in the head. It's like one guy he stabs in the forehead, another guy he stabs in the back of the head, another guy he stabs in the chin, so you're just constantly seeing like his claws coming out of people's heads. Even X-23 decapitates somebody. They don't show her decapitating the guy, but she walks out with her head under her arm and just kind of tosses it like a basketball. And it's like, do we need the excessive gore? We don't need it just for the sake of having it. You can have it in the film, but not have it be the focus of the film. So it loses a little bit for me with that. The fact that they didn't really wrap up any of the stories, like what was making Wolverine sick. I mean, he kind of says that it's the adamantium and it's poisoning him and it's killed off his regenerative abilities, but your body regenerates. Shouldn't it be able to fight off adamantium poisoning? There's got to be something else at work here that's causing your illness, but they never explain what it was. They never explain what happened with Charles all those years ago, what he did that actually killed off all the other X-Men and all the mutants around the world. They never really fully diagnose what his symptoms are, like why he's sick. They don't really go much into the X program to explain that there were other clones and that she was the 23rd one. They just kind of say like, oh, all these other clones of these other mutants we made are all the other X's. So there's like one with firepower, so obviously he was probably cloned off of Inferno. There's one that has ice breath. She was probably produced off of Iceman's DNA. There's one that has telekinetic abilities, so probably Jean Grey or Professor X himself. No heat vision, none of that, but so no Cyclops. There's one who can kind of harness the powers of nature, so she can like wrap you up in grass and weeds and stuff and suffocate you. Basically, those are the other X's 1 through 22. And then there's also an X-24 that shows up, who, again, is another clone of Wolverine. So why are there 2 Wolverine clones when they're all child clones of other X-Men? Doesn't really make a whole lot of sense about the X program. Yeah, so there are some flaws in this movie that I think after the hype of it wears off and people go back and rewatch it, they'll probably point out a lot of this stuff, but right now it's still really hyped up because it's the last Wolverine film starring Hugh Jackman. Everyone loves the character. Everyone's really in this comic book hype right now, and the glamour of it is eventually going to wear off, and people are going to poke holes in it. Just know that, you know, I was here saying it first, right off the bat, from the first time I saw the film. So what would I give it as far as a star rating? I was going to give it a 3.5 because, like I said, it was actually a fairly decent film, but, like I said, I am kind of over this whole X-Men, Wolverine, Hugh Jackman hype that everyone has going. I'm ready to move on from it. Even, like, a few years ago, you know, when the X-Men animated series was out in the 90s. Everyone loved Wolverine, and I just kind of got overdone with Wolverine. I'm like, can we just stop with Wolverine already? And, you know, there's other X-Men other than him that are a lot more interesting than him. And he kind of died off for a while, and it wasn't until the X-Men film started that he kind of made a resurgence. And now here it is, like, 10 years later, and we're still hyped on Wolverine. It's like, enough already. There are other X-Men. Let's focus on some of them. That's why Deadpool is so popular, because he's not friggin' Wolverine. So yeah, I was going to give it a 3.5, but like I said, there's a lot of story elements they don't wrap up. I'm kind of over the Wolverine hype. And the excessive gore for the sake of we can do gore now because we have an R rating. I'm going to bump it down to a 3 from a 3.5. It's not a bad film. I'll eventually add it to the collection because I do collect comic book-based movies. For the most part, it's just kind of an average middle of the road for me. I wasn't bored watching it, but I wasn't excited watching it either, if that makes sense. I just watched it to know how the story ended, basically. So, yeah, it gets a 3, a middle of the road for me. So that's it for this episode. Again, as always, thank you guys for watching. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, share the video. The links are in the description. Click the bell up here in the corner. Make sure you're getting notifications every time I post new content. And until next time, we'll see you after the credits.